Hey guys, what's going on? This is your old pal CHH, and today we're talking about Final Destination Bloodlines. Now, I don't really need to get into much spoilers with this video, so you're pretty much safe. That's just the way I roll. I mean, most of the time, I don't need to get into that. Most of my gripes or things I like, I can say it without basically spelling out the entire movie for you. So interestingly enough, I actually saw the trailer for this movie because I was in the movie theater waiting to see a movie when this actually showed up, and I thought the trailer for this actually looked pretty fun, and I just went back and rewatched all the Final Destination films over the last couple weeks to get ready for this one, and I think 4, the Final Destination, is probably the lowest point of the series, but 5, Final Destination 5, I thought was a step in the right direction. They kind of tried to raise the stakes a little bit. All the acting in these movies is like good for what they are, with the exception of 4. 4 felt like Sci-Fi Channel, which I do like some sci-fi movies. All right, guys, so Bloodline, I'll keep it very, very brief with the story. Bloodline is basically the Final Destination film that's family-oriented, I guess. There's a legacy thing going on with this whole movie about why people are in line to die, but there is a woman that is going through hell to try to stop it. And it's kind of reminiscent of like a Halloween 2018 where Laurie Strode is the crazy grandma, so to speak. We've kind of got that whole spiel going on with this movie. And, you know, this grandma that is living out in the woods and nowhere, kind of like Halloween 2018, looked at as a loon. But maybe she's not a loon. Maybe there's a reason why she's doing what she's doing. And that's kind of the whole setup for this film. And then from that point, the movie mainly goes through the focus of the granddaughter, the daughter, if you will. It sounds like I'm describing Halloween 2018 a little bit. I'm not, but there are some similarities with those two things. Her whole thing is trying to stop this whole mess where everybody around her thinks, you know, it's shenanigans, it's foolishness, naturally so. You're going to see a lot of the things from the Final Destination films in this movie. This movie doesn't really take strange risks with the lore or the way these movies are made. It's kind of like a Saw film or a Friday the 13th film, and in the sense that with the exception of like Part 5 or Jason Goes to Hell, you're going to this theater to see Jason. In a Final Destination film, you're going to the movie to see incredibly bizarre situations happen. Sometimes they can make sense and be outlandish but believable, and sometimes they can be really believable, and other times they can be really just outlandish. And you kind of get a little of all of that in this film, as well as a lot of the Final Destination films. What I do like about this film, and I won't really go into detail about it because I don't want to spoil it, the opening scene, of course, in any Final Destination film, the opening scene is kind of like your barometer on how this movie's going to be. I think when you look at the series, like Part 2's car crash is probably one of the all-time greatest. I love the roller coaster in 3. In this one, I'll just say a few things about it, I guess. This one, it's in this big tower sky restaurant kind of dance hall. It's like it's like this really high building that's got this fancy restaurant. People are dancing. There's parties going on in this. It's up in the sky, so you can kind of figure out where it's going with that. Now the question is it an entertaining scene in the opening? I thought it was really good. I had a great time with it. One of the things about this Final Destination film, I will say, without spoiling anything, is I'm kind of confused on what year this movie was made, because the CGI in this, funny enough, like definitely looked like it was from the 2000s, and it's so weird. Like CGI is so wonky. I feel like there's less wonkiness with practical effects because they've kind of got that stuff mastered by this day. Of course, I've seen some movies with crappy practical effects, but those are typically on just super low-budget films. But on a lot of horror films, practical stuff always at least has this certain level of believability because there's something physically in camera. But anyway, the CGI in this movie is kind of like not good. And the only reason I want to criticize it is because it's 2025. In 2005, 6, 7, like that technology was basically an adolescent technology, but CGI has been around now since I think the 90s. And it's kind of funny how the CGI in this is blatant CGI. Of course, when you have people falling to their deaths, or you have extremely bizarre things killing people in weird ways, you know, a lot of times those scenes can be cut fast or things happen and they're gone before you know it. And that blemishes the CGI to make it not so obvious. But in this one, they just figured, what the hell, I guess. We're going to have kill scenes and we're going to have stuff going on in this movie that is very heavy CGI and blatantly so when you see it. I don't know how to feel about that because here's the thing. On one sense, this movie felt like a 2000s horror film. There was nothing overtly 2025 about it in terms of anything. There was no 2025 dialogue. Like, nobody was saying it's giving or whatever the kids are saying these days. Like, nothing about this movie screamed 2025. It felt very much like a 2000s horror film. So in one sense, I can kind of get down with that, but in the other sense, it's just like, did they play it safe? Did they not worry about it? Were they saying, look, we're not going to worry about making realistic looking CGI stuff in here? I mean, it's pretty blatant in terms of like the characters and stuff like that. Again, kind of harping back to what I just said, like, they were fine. Everything about this was fine. I definitely think this movie is better than some of the others. Definitely part 4. Whether it's better than part 5 or not, I don't know. I'd have to go back and rewatch 5 again to know. But I think it's probably on par somewhat with 5, which means that this movie is a step in the right direction. Or it's still we're still above water, so to speak. I think 4 is the only one for me that was treading pretty bad. But this movie just feels like a 2000s horror film. You know, it just does. And there's a certain level of camp to it throughout the entirety of the film, too, that's just kind of, I don't know, just matter of fact about it. It's like, it's dealing with death and stuff like that, but there's a certain level of humor to it. But the reason that I think it does work in this film, for what it's worth, is because they're playing it straight. They're not overtly trying to be funny about it. It's kind of like, that's the way I like my horror comedies. Like, I don't want people acting funny or being silly. Like, play it straight, and the situations should kind of be funny. And they did that fairly well. I guess this movie's fine. It's a fine movie. Here's the one thing I will say. You know, you ever hear people say, you know, like, oh, you got to see that movie in the theater? Did I have a fun time in the theater? Absolutely, sure. But this is a movie that I think you'd get just as much out of it for what it's worth at the house. This is just a silly, fun little popcorn flick to be entertained by. Absolutely nothing more. It is what it is. So I'm going to say that this movie, out of a 10 scale, is probably, I'd give it a 5.8, you know, out of 10. It's just, it's fun, slightly above average. There are certainly things that could have been a lot worse, and they weren't. Those things weren't worse, so that's good. You know, don't expect to have your world changed by a movie called Final Destination Bloodlines. The only other thing I will say is, seeing Mr. Tony Todd in here, rest in peace, was extremely bittersweet. And his dialogue was very chilling. I'll put it to you like that because, well, you'll see. It was very chilling. Not in a spooky kind of way, but you can tell that he knew he was dying, and his scenes kind of reflect that. It was kind of it was a chilling experience. You got to hear what he says, and I loved his scene in the film, by the way. Rest in peace, Tony. So, guys, I'm not going to make this a super long one. That's Final Destination Bloodlines. Of course, it's always good to support horror films in the theaters, but if I'm just being dead honest, I think you'll get just as much out of this at the house as you would in the movie theater. With that being said, of course, anybody that can support movies at the theaters, of course. Who doesn't love the movie theaters? We want them to be around for a long time. That should always be an important medium. So go see it if you can. If not, at least see something else. See another horror film. I know I need to catch up on some myself. But that's it, guys. Final Destination Bloodlines. Had a good time. I'm sure I'm gonna see better horror films this year, and I'm sure I'll see worse ones. It just is what it is. Slightly above average, and it's not the worst Final Destination in my opinion. There you have it, guys. This is your old pal CHH. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. Take care. Huge giant thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Without you guys, this would not be possible. To get behind the scenes photos, videos, music, private live streams, and much more, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you to my patrons.